Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about a Jezebel who finally got her butt kicked by the president, no less, somebody that she supposedly was close to. So if you wanted to know a little bit more about this perennial figure that pops up like a weed all the time in Korean politics, and you're just wondering like, why does she keep wearing this green velvet Gucci jacket for years? Like, she's trying to say that she's like, budget conscious, but on the other hand, she's making herself look really bougie and out of touch with the voters. But that is the least of what this Jezebel has done. She done pissed off the president of South Korea, who fired her ass from 2 government jobs, and yet she's denying it, saying like, oh, I just resigned. So that should show a little bit what her character is like. So we're going to go into that. And due to popular request, we now have Phase 1 of the merch line here on Seoulite TV. It's the K-drama collection, and it has our definition of what K-drama is. I don't want to read it out loud here, but you can click on the link below, see what it's all about, and if you're so bold enough and sassy enough to wear it, please send me a photo of you wearing it and let me know what you think. It's done by a third-party manufacturer that I researched, and it seemed like it was like the most high quality, but I would love your feedback on that. And of course, our mass sale continues until the end of January. There's going to be a bundle deal where you can get the eye mask for only $99. And that's if you bundle it with the EcoFace face mask, so that you can work on both your skin and your eyes and have a relaxing time doing it instead of going to an expensive dermatologist or putting your faith in hope in a jar. Because we all know we love our cosmetics, we love our skincare, but there's no beating actually working on your real skin and collagen levels. All right, guys, all that and more coming right up. Alright, so who is this Jezebel, and what is a Jezebel, if you're just wondering? We'll go into Jezebel and the Jezebel spirit a little bit in more detail later, but in a nutshell, it's essentially a very manipulative person, and usually characterized in the form of a woman, but it could also be in a male, where control and being the center of attention, basically being a narcissist, is the ultimate goal for these people, no matter how many relationships they destroy and institutions. And in particular, we're talking about the government and politics. They don't care about the country. It's all about them and their need for some sort of control and power by any means necessary. And the problem with the Jezebel spirit in general is that people are in denial because they are so good at being manipulative. And the reason why it's also from, biblical passages, but in just anecdotal, secular experience, is that they use feminine charms and wiles. So people think that, oh, well, she seems like a nice person, or, oh, she seems really hot. And people put up with it until it's too late. And it seems as if the president got the lesson the hard way with this lawmaker in particular. Her name is Kyung Won, and recently we'll go over what recently happened, and then we'll peel back the onion of her past. She got fired from 2 government posts. One was the vice chair of a presidential committee on population policy. So essentially, we are becoming an aged population in Korea. We're running out of people. So there's a committee. So it's not even a ministerial post. So that becomes a little bit more important. So basically, she basically went above so many bosses' heads and just announced government policy without even the approval of the president who appointed her. And she also has a post as a climate ambassador. So she claims that, oh, I didn't get fired. It was a misunderstanding. That's a mischaracterization. I put in my letter of resignation. Now, usually in Korean politics or whatnot, yeah, if it was cordial, then people would be like, yeah, we're going to fire you, but maybe we can call it a resignation. She just decided that it was a resignation on her own. And not only that, the president's office, the spokesperson, who, by the way, looked really gleeful while she was clarifying the situation, like she did not like this woman. She said that, no, she got fired. She got fired. Her ass got fired. And this is a little bit odd in the sense that, why are you going to go through all that trouble to pretend you didn't get fired when the presidential office and the official spokesperson is saying, no, you were fired? And she's trying to save face because now she's contemplating. Now, this is the whole manipulative thing again. When she good and ready planned and plotted to basically run to be the leader of the Conservative Party, the PPP, People's Power Party. And so she's a conservative and she wants to be the head of the party. There's going to be an election coming up in March, and they changed the rules so only the people who are like, in the political circles can vote. They just decided to cut out the people's voice. Okay, that's another issue. And so it seems as if she was preparing, essentially like doing a campaign by using her office, especially in the Committee on Population Policy. Now, let's back up a little bit. So she got fired. The election is coming up in March, and she still hasn't announced. She said, oh, well, I'm still like kind of like, thinking about it. Come on. If all these people, why do we even have to give Jezebel this much time? But if we're giving you this much time, essentially there has been behind the scenes talk that she's gonna run. And a few weeks ago, so early on in this year, and kind of like moving in from the end of last year, she wanted to essentially create this policy, which of course is great for a committee to look at the options, see how to bolster the population here in South Korea so that we don't go off a demographic cliff. But the problem is that she created her own policy and she announced her own policy without the blessing of the ministerial level, where this committee is probably like underneath some sort of probably like marriage and family, or I guess they got rid of that, but it probably fell into another minister's camp. And so she didn't get the blessing of that person. The prime minister, right, like the leader of all the ministerial appointments, publicly stated that, I don't like your idea. Your idea does not jive with our party policy and also the administration policy, which basically means the president's policy. What did she try to do? She said like, oh, well, over in Hungary, they do this. And when people get married, we should give them like a loan of $40,000. And if they have a kid, then reduce the payments or the interest. And then if they have a second or third kid, just completely get rid of the debt altogether. And in that way, there might be more people having kids. Now, the problem is, President Yoon thinks that is way too populist, because, he's the guy that got rid of the gender ministry, and now they're saying like, we're going to give, all this free money out. But he did have a plan right now that is also being formed. So it's as if he has a competing plan, even though there should be no competing plan, because he's the president and he can set the policy from the administration. And in his idea. He wants to have about $700 a month go to families raising newborns for the first year, then cut that in half to about $350 a month for the year after that. And then he said that like the starting rate would rise to about $1,000 a month in 2024, and then the year after he'd cut that in half, and then it would be $500 a month. So about 2 years, he's saying like, we'll just give you cash payments in those amounts. And what she did is she just went out to the public and announced this as if she was either the minister or if she was the president. And in that way, it shows how the politics work in Korea, where she overstepped the president. President got pissed off and just fired her ass. And the problem that I see on the one hand, we're talking about, let's bring it back to the BTS thing. Remember President Yoon's, now to, give a little bit of shade to President Yoon. Remember President Yoon said that like with the whole BTS situation in terms of exempting them from the military, he's like, oh, that is something that the Military Manpower Association has to decide, or I'm going to leave it to the ministers to decide. There ain't nothing that the president leaves to the ministers to decide on their own, and that is extremely clear in this case. If you do not have the blessing of the president, or if the president did not want a certain policy, it's not going to get announced by the minister whom he appointed himself. So if you all are wondering about like the whole situation, could President Yoon have done something about BTS? Yeah, this case completely shows that the president had the ball in his court with the whole BTS situation. Let's bring it back to this Jezebel. Now, why do I call her Jezebel? The moment I saw her, she reminded me of somebody I've worked with. I think they might have even gone to the same plastic surgeon and ordered the same face, but their tactics are so similar. Now, there is, of course, something to be understood, or there is a disadvantage of being a woman, especially in Korea and in politics, although we've had a female president before the United States. But there is disadvantages in society where they have to cling. It's understandable if you want to ride the coattails of somebody who's more powerful, or like a man. But because men do that too. Everybody does that in terms of like, you make your alliances and you try to go with somebody who's, you think is powerful enough to win and can, protect you or whatnot. So up to a certain level, that is very understandable. But where the Jezebel portion comes in is that she'll latch on like a leech or a parasite. This is what Jezebels do to the man in power, and then infect the man in power, and then use that man's power for her own ends and manipulate, just like Jezebel did with King Ahab, and then bring bad situations, a bad kind of philosophy, or just change the culture of either the work environment or the political landscape or even a family unit. And you start to see the institution break apart. There's really no goal. There's really no policy. There's really no real thing that's for the people. Everything is done in order to gain power and to win a powerful seat. That is what President Yoon accused her of doing. He even said like, yeah, she's just doing her own personal politics. Now, I think his wife also, we can call her also like, Jezebel part 2, because usually when you see these men, who gets sucked in by the Jezebels, they have like a personality profile that is easily manipulated, and so you'll tend to see more than one Jezebel in their life, but there can only be one. The reason why I say that is that the president knew this lawmaker, Kyung Won, from the past because they went to the same law school and they were like study buddies or whatever, and then now I'm sure his wife is real happy to tear down another Jezebel to take the heat off of her own Jezebelianness. And so they are abroad. They went to the UAE, then they're over at Davos, and then that's even it's an even worse move that Miss Na was making these power plays while he was out of the country. And so that's another tactic that they will use. Now, the other thing that really pissed me off about her before, that was very similar to the Jezebel that I worked with, is that she would just make up nicknames for herself that assume a power that she hasn't gotten yet, but she's striving for in order to intimidate the crowd and make it seem as if everybody is on her side when nobody really likes her. And so she'd make up some nicknames and say like, oh yeah, well, over in this, part of the party or in the presidential office or the, management up above was calling her like, the next great big thing. And that, again, manipulative, absolutely manipulative. Where else did I see how this lawmaker, was stepping over the line when she knew that Pan Ki-moon, who was the former UN, United Nations General Secretary, was coming back to Korea, and most likely, like, once he landed, he was starting his presidential campaign. Oh, she showed up right next to him, uninvited, like a thirsty houseplant. And she was just, like, clinging to his side whenever there was some sort of media opportunity, and he didn't even invite her. And so she was suddenly like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be on your side. So again, trying to latch on to somebody who she thinks that is like a nice person or impressionable. And again, the reason why it seems as if she has this MO even recently, she's saying that, oh, this was a misunderstanding. That's the biggest thing. Misunderstanding. Oh, she's so misunderstood. They ain't misunderstood, okay? The victims are misunderstood, but she takes the misunderstanding label and puts it on herself when she caused the misunderstanding through her manipulation, and people are confused. And so she said, oh, it's just a misunderstanding. I wasn't fired, but, if I would just be able to talk to the president one-on-one, we'll probably be able to resolve this. Again, if I can just talk to you one-on-one and manipulate and then be like, oh, well, that, you know what? I think President Yoon is done being gaslit. I think he sees her for her true colors. And now the rest of Korea, I think, is beginning to see her true colors. And people always say like, oh, well, don't feel bad, time, in time people will tell. Yeah, sometimes it could take 20 years. She started this whole political kind of life about almost 20 years ago. She was a judge, and she retired as a judge at a really early age. Why you gotta retire, huh? If you didn't do something wrong? And so we know that actually that is kind of like a modus operandi for like senior judges. Like before they retire, they'll do some sort of real shady kind of like ruling, be like, bye, out of here, because that has also become a recent concern with another case. Our favorite psycho politician on the left side, on his case. We'll get into that in a different video. And she retired as a judge, then she entered politics. She was the spokesperson for President Lee Myung-bak before, and she became like a 4-term lawmaker. And then, in between, they're always hopping from like some sort of like government posts or some sort of cushy position. She ran the Special Olympics here in Korea, and apparently, she also uses like her kid. One of her kids apparently is a special needs child. She always is like, oh, because like, oh, it's like, not that, we do need to care about special needs kids, but you shouldn't be using them for politics. And it looked like she was using them. And then she even like got into some sort of controversy somewhere where like she did a photo op with a special needs kid and like bathing them and then got them naked or something. And then, people were just like, what the heck is going on here? And they just did not like that either. And then her other kid, who I don't think is a special needs at all, but I think she has some needs that are special because, she was a special one when she went on the campaign trail with her mother, when she was running for mayor, she ran for mayor twice and she lost, or it was either through mayor or her National Assembly seat that she lost when Miss Corona had happened. And her kid literally was like, oh yeah, if it weren't for letting in the Chinese people, we wouldn't be in this mess, really xenophobic. Where's she getting that language, huh? If not from home. Like, she was maybe junior high school level or something. They put her right in front of the microphone on a campaign stump, and then they were just like, okay, get that kid off the stage. And so it's just a lot of crazy talk. And I remember in a recent press conference when she was talking about oh, I wasn't fired or whatnot, but I'm dedicated to President Yoon's success. She was literally kissing the butt of President Yoon, who's not here, because she knew that she pissed him off. And she's like, oh yeah, it's all about President Yoon. Flattery, that's another thing with these Jezebelian spirits. And she's like, oh, it has to be we have to support the president spokesperson again, who was real happy to say, oh no, we don't want you. We don't want you to run. We don't want that any more of you. And so she is essentially neck and neck with An Chol-soo in the second place position in terms of the latest opinion polls. There's a guy who's about 10 points higher. He's leading in the sense of he is probably going to be the next party leader, unless An Chol-soo can take the votes of the remainders if they, drop out, or especially if she drops out. An Chol-soo, man, because he's saying oh, President Yoon, dude, if I didn't merge my campaign, he's always, I don't want to tell you from the, previous videos, he's always getting the short end of the stick. He's always merging his campaign and being like, oh, okay, well, I'll take one for the team. How many more are you going to take for the team? And you realize this team don't even think that you're on the team. Oh, and why is she even here? She should be even barred from running for office. The crowbar incident. I forgot to even mention that. In the United States, there's a legal process within, I believe, the Senate where you can filibuster. If you want to block the other party from passing legislation, you can filibuster, read the dictionary or whatever to try to delay a vote. And there have been controversies about that, but in the framework of the way that they've set up the Senate rules, apparently that's still okay. Now in Korea, a filibuster that they used in terms of a tactic, which was illegal because they've already passed a law saying this was illegal about 10 years ago, but just 3 years ago, there was a motion by the liberal lawmakers who wanted to set up that special investigative committee to look at corruption by high-ranking officials, which we do have. But before that was passed, it was in committee and at the National Assembly, and the committee members were going to go vote and pass it in a fast-track manner. Well, the conservatives did not like that, and especially, Miss Na was at the forefront of this whole, let's block them, but this was a literal physical block. They used furniture and even people and their bodies laying on the floor to prevent the lawmakers from going to the committee room, preventing lawmakers from voting, preventing the democratic process through literally locking staff and lawmakers in their office. One of the liberal lawmakers, he had to call the media for a press conference to ask for help, and he had to talk out the window to the reporters. He held his press con, and this was not one of those big windows where you'd be like, hi. It was one of those flappy windows that you see on a lot of high rises because they don't want you to fall out. So it's a little flap just for ventilation. He's like, hi guys. Oh my gosh, we're locked up in here. And this is a perversion of the democratic process. And so some of the liberal lawmakers, I don't know where they found a crowbar, but then they got a crowbar. They're using whatever they can to try to chop down the door to escape. Well, through one of like the crevices, they grabbed the crowbar, they confiscated it, and then Miss Na was parading in front of the cameras like, we got the crowbar, you know, like shh, like vile. Absolutely. And it didn't even probably dawn on her that she was blocking the democratic process, which I find extremely troubling because she was a former judge. Shows what kind of judge she probably was, and we should probably look into why she had to resign so early. I think there's a big story there. All right, guys, so you asked, I'm trying to deliver. These are the new merch items. Link below. It's called the K-Drama collection because we know what K-Drama really is. You know, if you want to F around with Koreans, you're going to find out. So there's a definition that you can proudly wear if anybody's asked you about, like, you know, what is K-drama? What's the big thing all about? Well, that's what it is. And here, you know, in Korea, it's like Koreans finding out what happens when they mess with each other a lot of the time. But I think also the definition is broad enough where if you wear it outside of Korea, it's a signal. Don't mess with Koreans. I'll have part 2 of the collection, which is just Seoulite TV, like the logo and our catchphrase. And that should be coming soon. I have to, you know, design it and put it up, and I'm going to try to use 2 different manufacturers so that we can see, you know, we'll do like quality control and, you know, A/B testing and see, you know, which side does better. They're probably both good, but I always just want to, you know, make sure that the best goes out there. So we'll, you know, we can compare the 2. I don't even have any. So that's all available for you. Link down below. And remember, you can get 10% off all of the mask products with special coupon code Seoulite TV on either seoulite.tv or ecofaceplatinum.com. All right, guys, what do you think? I mean, if you really do want to see what a manipulative Jezebel type of spirit is like in terms of a politician's form, I don't think we have any better example. Put your comments below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. See you again next time. Bye-bye.